Hello and a big welcome to the Career Success Podcast. I'm Jason Connolly. If you're a regular listener, it's great to have you back, but if you're new, welcome to the show. In this series every week, we speak to the biggest names in business all across the globe. We talk about their career stories, the lessons learned, how they overcome challenges, and what success habits they practice. Practical advice to help you in your career. In this episode, I'm delighted to be joined by Dr. Lynda Ulrich from Vermont, Canada. Dr. Lynda is the founder of Ever Widening Circles, a positive global media company that began publishing articles in 2014 about remarkable insights and innovation going uncelebrated. Now Lynda is on a mission to bring us all together around an enormous wave of goodwill and progress well underway in the world that almost no one knows about. Lynda calls it the global wave, the conspiracy of goodness. Dr. Lynda is being interviewed by news media outlets all around the world about the opening of this new era. Her best-selling book, positive news website, app, podcast, educational website, TEDx talk, public speaking and consulting website, and the recently launched Conspiracy of Goodness Network are all helping to do just that. Dr. Lynda came at this task as an outsider, a dentist, mother of three, ordinary web user, artist, and global traveler for decades. The two unique characteristics she brought to these tasks are fearless curiosity and the ability to find light in every human being. Instincts sharpened by a life as a global traveler, exceptional artist, and early adopter of technology, Dr. Lynda has devoted her professional life to finding inspiring ways to keep humanity in healthcare. And now she is speaking to thought leaders around the world every week who are making the world a better place. What an intro, Lynda. Great to have you on the show.
I am so delighted to be here, Jason.
Thank you. So it was quite the intro there, and there's so much that I want to talk to you about and cram into this episode today. But in your own words, just tell us about you, Lynda.
So, Jason, the first thing I really like to convey to everyone is that, I have the sense now that everything that came before was critical to me living in this moment the best way I know how. And so I look at my story as kind of, most people look at it as super convoluted, but I look at it as all these building blocks that led me to be able to do what I do now best. I've definitely found my calling, but let me give you some of the milestones that got me here. My husband and I were childhood sweethearts, and we grew up in this cornfield in Illinois, a little state right in the center of the United States where corn and soybeans stretch for hundreds of miles in all directions. And we didn't know much about the outside world. And then he was one of the top 20 basketball players in the world. And that took us out into the world. He became a really, really wonderful basketball player. And we lived in Spain. And that began a life's journey that made me think of myself and what's possible as a global citizen, not just, all this nationality and all that. So we lived in Spain. I graduated from dental school. My husband and I have actually been dentists for 25 years. And when I graduated from dental school, we by then had Irish citizenship through the basketball years. And so we went to Italy to practice dentistry and live. And so again, ups and downs and all these stories that I'm brushing over. But the main thing that I took away from this crazy life's journey is that people everywhere want the same things. And we're all quite a lot more generous and quite a lot more ingenious than we will ever know on the internet or what we see on the nightly news, ever. We will never know the beauty and depth of humanity if our window on that is what we see in our online lives. And so by being a dentist, I was in real deep contact with 30 to 40 people a day. And it became kind of like my own Nielsen rating system. Like I could talk to people about what they cared about, and what they were celebrating, and what they feared. And as the years rolled by, I started to develop this picture of humanity. And as we all know, things got dark after 9/11. They got darker and darker and darker. And we think things are dark now, but it was already starting to look the world was starting to look in the future pretty gloomy by 2012.
And when you say dark, just expand on that. What do you
Well,
mean?
Our online lives got bigger and bigger. And, the organizing principle of the internet is to capture and hold our attention by any means.
Hmm.
So I noticed that was having more and more of an impact on people. I tell people, if you really want to reduce the origins of our online lives down to stages, in 1993 there were only 130 websites, and by 2003,
It seems unbelievable when you
it
say
seems
that.
unbelievable, doesn't it?
It
By
does.
by 2003 there were 40 million.
Wow.
Now remember, the engineers who invented the internet, they wanted to connect us to each other and to information quicker. That was the potential of the internet. And in that 130 to 40 million in 10 years, an organizing principle had to evolve, and it had gotten out of everybody's hands to control that. And what became the organizing principle of our online lives is our attention. It is an attention economy.
I 100% agree.
Everything about our online lives is about capturing, holding our attention. So big surprise. Negativity, the neuroscience is being used to do that now. We are hardwired, and rightly so, to pay attention to signs of danger and disorder, because that's what's helped us survive for hundreds of thousands of years. So I started noticing that whole bubble really getting into people's heads, and taking people that I'd known as cheerful and optimistic and turning them into fearful and sad about the future about 2010, 11, 12 in my practice. And I became this person, my mission.
How incredible to be seeing that kind of in front of you, because I agree with you. I think that all of these apps, even things like WhatsApp, what's the purpose of the person being online notification, or the fact they're typing? It's just to keep you glued
That's it.
to these things, and none of this. They all play on the human psyche. All of these
Yes.
apps, likes, filters. And I can imagine seeing it in front of you is somewhat of a scary thing.
Yeah, and just to be able to watch human lives evolve with this process, because you got to remember that I became a dentist in 1990, and I watched the whole scope of this thing evolve by being involved in thousands of people's lives. And because I'm naturally curious, I would talk to people about what they were hoping for and what they were celebrating, what they were fearing, and all that stuff. And it always came back to this view of each other and the world that the news and our online lives was creating. And if you ask,
I think that's it. I think that's right. And
yeah,
the shift in I think it's bad news sells, doesn't it? And even when I put on the news now, I have to turn it off at some point, because it's just so negative. It's you very rarely see a positive news story, do you? It's always negative events.
So I always explain to people that I just never think about the bad intentions of others. I think about the intentions of others, but I give people the benefit of the doubt. And one thing to look at ourselves and the people creating the news and online content is that there's this part of our brain called the amygdala that is in charge of our fight or flight responses. And that's the one part of our brain that's on 24/7. Even when you sleep, it's your amygdala that, if you smell a molecule of smoke, will make you sit up in your bed and go look for the fire in your apartment or house. Our amygdala is on, and it's in the driver's seat 24/7. And think about this. When the internet became a thing, nobody gave us any rules of the road. Nobody told us how to use it. It's essentially now like a toddler running with scissors. And what I tell people is, the first thing you got to do, and you would do this with a toddler running with scissors right in front of you, you would not chase them. You would not. You would know, you'd want to, but you'd know you could not, because they will go faster and they will likely fall. So the first thing you have to do with our online lives is stop running with it. Start just shifting up from that impulsive part of your brain that draws you in and keeps you there, to the more thoughtful part of your brain. The cerebral cortex is the part of our brain that's about decision making and about time management and about long-term thinking. I think that we are at a part in our human nature and our human development where we can start pausing. and asking ourselves, is this where I want my attention? Because what we give our attention to expands.
Tell us more about the expansion.
Well, if you think about your relationship with a teenager, maybe your son or a nephew or something, if you all you focus on with them is them coming in late for curfew, or their terrible grade, the terrible grade that they got, or they're not picking up their room. If that's all they hear coming out of your mouth, if that's what you're giving your attention to is all their flaws, then you know as well as I do what happens to that behavior. It expands.
No, I think that's
right.
Yeah, it's 100% true.
You look in your workplace. If you decide that a coworker is just worthless, or a freeloader, or whatever you decide about, just drives you crazy because they hum all the time, or whatever it is, you know how that works. The more you give your attention to it, the more it expands. I mean, it's true in almost every aspect of life. And the same is our worldview. The same goes our worldview on what we give our attention to in our online lives and the news. So what's happened, if we're still in this Dr. Lynda story, is that I was starting to notice all these realizations by having these chats. And it became a practice of me because I saw so much sadness and fear that I started finding something to celebrate with every single patient. I'm telling you, it's gotten so unusual that people will keep their dental appointments with my husband and I on the day their spouse dies. At first, it was very strange, and you never know what to say and awkward and stuff. But now we've realized that being curious about others and others feeling like they can count on you for something to celebrate is something that we need to do all for each other, and that we can so easily do that for each other. Okay, so I'm in this continuum. I've traveled. My kids have slept on plywood in Tibet. They've gotten lost with us in the Andes. We always took them, since they could carry their own backpack, on journeys of purpose. I started seeing so much ingenuity and generosity in the bleak places in the world that I knew that the world would never know that side of humanity because we just aren't showing it. We just don't give it any attention in the news or online lives. And then one day, Jason, I got an email from a young boy I'd known since he was a toddler. And he was writing me from a foxhole in a very bleak place in the world. And in his email, he expressed all the things that so many of us are saying now. The world's hopeless. I don't think anything matters. I signed up for this because I thought it was my way to make the world a better place. And now I see that everything's hopeless. The word I get from home is hopeless too. I mean, there was so much hopelessness in this email. And the reason why he chose to write his dentist, I realized at that moment, was because I had known him well, and he could always count on me for something to celebrate. I was always curious, so I knew about funny science things. He was kind of a science geek when he was a little kid and loved bugs, and I always found something to celebrate with him. And I tell you, that email, that was the tipping point for me, is that I could no longer stand by and say, somebody needs to do something about this. This is a point, Jason, that I think many of us get to with our sense of purpose in the world, which is something I hope we get time to talk about today. Once you recognize that you can influence positively the lives of others, I always say that goals push you along, but purpose pulls you along. And I got this idea that day. Somebody very much smarter than me said that. I did not say that.
Do you know what? I thought it was a brilliant quote. I was just sitting there reflecting on it, which was why I didn't say anything.
Yeah, I'm going to think of that.
I thought it was so good that I like it.
Yeah, by the time, I think there's a wonderful podcast. If anybody wants some referrals to great insights and stuff, I'm curious about absolutely everything. So I listen to the Strangest Collection podcast, but there's a great podcast called Hidden Brain. And it's a neuroscientist that talks about all of us and social behavior and what's going on in society that and make sense of it all through how we're hardwired in our brain. So it's called Hidden Brain, and there's an episode on finding your purpose. And so there's a scientist in that episode that says that, and I thought, oh, that's it. That's it. We can try and push ourselves along by setting goals, but once you found your purpose, you are powerless to ignore it. It pulls you along. And that email set my course to prove that it is still an amazing world, because I'd lived all over the world. I'd traveled, I was well read, and I thought, okay, I'm in this position to start a website that writes one article every day on anything under the sun to prove it is still an amazing world, with no politics and no ads. So that was really the crux. I went on a great search of the internet for this young man to send him something as a response to this email. And I could not find any place that wasn't left-leaning or right-leaning, or wasn't just so full of ads that you didn't feel like it was a trusted source.
So fascinating. I'm really enjoying this story, Lynda.
Well, I'll tell you, I was fixing teeth with computers as a dentist in 2003. So I was doing well as a professional. I was having a good time in life. I didn't know that I wasn't on a search for purpose. I thought I was doing it. And then this day shows up, and I was called to do something that I was really well prepared to do, uniquely built to do and contribute. And I think that's where lots of us are now after the pandemic. We've realized that what we're doing may be tremendously successful and helpful to people, but it may not be what sends our hearts soaring. And if you can do what I did, which is take all your life experiences and use them to apply yourself to something that makes you feel like a sense of purpose that pulls you along, you have found the sweet spot in life where work-life balance is not an issue, because you do what you're doing, whether people paid you or not. You're just living in the present. And so that's what I talk to people a lot now about, is purpose and meaning. So I did this project with Ever Widening Circles, wrote thousands of articles, put together a team of 9 people who were literally curating the internet for trusted stories of insight and innovation going uncelebrated. And we just have had a fabulous time of it. It's called everwideningscircles.com. Ever Widening Circles, like when you throw a pebble in a pond. Okay, so you can go there and you can learn all about people who have found their way to purpose and meaning, because they all have the most extraordinary stories of how they wound up doing something that's making the world a better place.
A website to be the founder of.
It is beautiful. I have a daughter who I was just kind of putting it together, one foot in front of the other, until I have a daughter who graduated from Harvard. And in 2015, she could have worked any place in the world, because we carry Irish passports, and she'd just known the world as a really cool place. But gosh, she sat me down on the porch one day, Jason, and she said, "Mom, if you build a really nice website, I'll join you, and we'll change the negative dialogue about our times."
I love that. What a lovely story.
Yeah. So that's how I come to talk to you, is that I have had this unusual life's journey, and now I talk to people about 2 things. The gratitude economy that I see coming, and this finding a way to live with purpose and meaning that's good for everybody. It's always a win for everyone.
Which subject do you want to talk about first out of the 2? Because I really want to make sure we get enough time for you to talk about both of these topics. You ran me through them before the show, and I couldn't decide which one to run with, so we're going with both.
Well, I think one kind of leads into the other, and it's kind of a continuation of my story. So let's talk about the gratitude economy first.
Sure.
Okay. So what I've noticed, now, to my knowledge, if there's somebody else on the internet, out of the billions of websites, that has done what we've done, They may not be doing a really super good job because we haven't been able to discover them. There are some amazing good news websites out there. Oh my gosh. And we're starting to partner with them and amplify their messages. But this no politics and no ads seems to be part of the equation that humanity needs right now. I think the thing that's missing, here's something, a concept that a thought leader dropped on me, because I talk to thought leaders on my own podcast, and here's one that just sticks with me today. Institutional voids. There's usually this major thing that we're missing in our company ethos or culture or our family culture or whatever. And I'm calling, this thought leader calls it institutional voids, which I love. And I think the institutional void on the internet is trust.
Mm. Mm.
It's what we're all feeling there. We don't know who to believe. Even when we see something from our team politically that just, digs the other side into the ground, crushes the other side, it doesn't feel good to celebrate that anymore. What do you think, Jason?
I totally agree.
Yeah. So at first, when I came upon the gratitude economy, that I started noticing it. What I started noticing was that in myself and others, we're starting to tune out the chaos builders.
Who would you associate those sorts of
I would
people
just
to be?
say anyone who doesn't seem thoughtful about what they're putting online. People that are just
Right.
ratcheting up the drama.
Yeah. I think we can all think of one glowing example of that.
Yeah, and without even going there, we can just take a look at your news feed one day and just see, when you start looking at people who are trying to build the chaos and the drama, they will start to stand out like a sore thumb. And we're all tuning them out. I talk to lots of people who are now making it a practice to just unfollow influencers they were once following, because the influencers are so dramatic in their way they put their content out, or so, I don't know, I don't even have the words for it, but there's something, they leave us with a bad feeling in the pit of our stomach.
Yeah, it's not, a lot of these people, you sort of look at them and you do feel a sense of disconnect. Well, I do. I want to be following people of goodness. People, I think it's trust, isn't it? I think that's what it
It's
is,
trust.
Linda. It
It's
is
trust.
trust. It's, I think that's why, and I don't want to just start pulling random people out of the hat, but Oprah Winfrey, when I watch her, I like her. I think her
Mm-hmm.
intentions are good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that you would also see that Oprah very seldom ratchets up the drama on things. She might talk about the drama. She might ask us to consider, but she almost always asks us in that consideration to consider the other side. She's very
Hmm.
measured.
She is measured. That's again another word I like. It's measured. I think.
Yeah.
I think that's why she doesn't push views on
Hmm.
people. She lets you make your own mind up.
Yeah, when I do public speaking, sometimes it's about, the how tos.
Mm.
And when I talk about how to watch the news, I always say, turn down the sound with your favorite newscaster. Just turn down the sound and you're looking at them. And if you can tell what their emotions are by just looking at them, not even hearing them speak, then they're not doing straight up news. They're doing opinion.
Mm. That's true. I agree with that.
Right? Because the straight up news should just tell us what happened. It shouldn't tell us what to think about it.
Yeah, it's with we have the BBC in England, which I'm sure you've
Oh,
seen before,
sure.
but their news is very because of the nature of them. It's a lot of the time very factual and
Hmm.
has no bias or opinion. Whether when there is, they get in a lot of trouble for it. So
Absolutely. And just to finish wrap up on that, just for a practical tip for your listeners, I when people do say, well, okay, so Dr. Linda, you probably just tune out the news altogether because it's all so negative. And I say, absolutely not. Don't. I once was chatting with a woman who rose to one of the highest levels in journalism, and she reminded me about how important it is for us to know what's happening in the world. That, journalism is still one of the only things left standing between us and the complete rampant power of of some individuals, right? The journalists are the ones who are telling the story. They're putting their lives on the line. They're winding up like, news themselves when they meet their demise.
Well, exactly, yeah.
Right. So, so she reminded me that there's a fine balance. It's like a diet, right? You wouldn't just go eating junk food 24 hours a day, which is what happens when you spend too much time in opinion news realm. You're just hearing about the same thing. There's no nutrition there necessarily, but if you just use it like a diet, you just take it with some really careful consideration. Here's what I do. My drive to work is 12 minutes. So I turn on our version of the BBC, which is NPR, and I listen to whatever's going on our great NPR station for that 12 minutes. And on my way home, I listen to the BBC.
Oh, do you really?
Oh, yeah, because I haven't found, and I'm not dissing at all, but I look to the BBC for a global perspective, and I look to NPR for a national perspective. And
That's
12
really
minutes there and 12 minutes back, and really 24 minutes a day. If something is happening so important in the world that it doesn't make that 24-minute corridor, it's probably not that important to my decision.
I do exactly the same thing.
Yes.
So, yeah, I agree with what you're saying there. I think I'm doing it without knowing I'm doing it, but I'm doing it consciously because I don't. Well, I think for me, it all started when Brexit started in this country. It was Brexit, it's doomsday, and I think I just got sick to the back teeth of it. So that was when I started to disengage from the media.
Yeah, I'm just asking people to find a trusted source that isn't telling you what to think. Yeah, that little thing about tuning out the sound and seeing if you can tell that the newscaster is angry or appalled or making fun of somebody. You can tell that body language and facial expressions. If you can read their emotions, then it's opinion. It's not straight up news. So find the best source you can of straight up news. Do the best you can. Jason and I are just giving people what we've discovered works. I'm sure there are many other recipes for that. And then let that be your window onto the world. And then the rest of the time, curate your incoming. Curate what comes your way. You don't have to follow the person. Let's say there's somebody that's always wearing the most stylish clothes or always looks perfect and makes you in the pit of your stomach feel like you just can't quite measure up. Unfollow.
Right, good. I like that. Very, very direct, straight to the point. That's what you need to do.
Yes, or let's just pick on other social media thing. If you're seeing somebody that looks reactive and chaos building, even if it's somebody on your team politically, and they're not being thoughtful and measured, or whatever they're putting on as content isn't helpful. Helpful is a very important word to think about now. Like, what's truly helpful? Is more shouting at each other helpful? I don't think so.
No. And that's a very good question in itself, isn't it? What is helpful?
So
we could probably talk for the next 10 minutes just on that one question.
On that one, yes, I definitely can. But to circle back to the gratitude economy, here's what I think is what I see from the 100,000-foot look, is that we have been in an attention economy since the advent of radio. If you really think about all the communication that's come before, radio was the first time that people could actually control a message to millions and start using this because this neuroscience of us giving our attention to scary things has been known for 100 years. So that's the beginning of the attention economy, and then radio, and then TV, and then the internet. It all is one big amplification of what worked and then forget what doesn't work.
It's kind of attacking you from all directions, though, isn't it? Because it's, even if you don't watch the news or watch the TV, you're definitely going to get this amplification of sound from somewhere, because it's, even people's friends and stuff are then, reposting it. So, you have to be quite conscious of it, don't you?
Yes. And that's all I'm asking. I'm asking people to live their online lives in a conscious state of mind. It's like it's no good to just go on autopilot when you get behind the wheel of your car. There is no autopilot. The more distracted you are, the more likely you are to end up in some terrible way. And the same is true of the of the internet, our lives online. So I tell people, if you want to see a picture of your daughter, of your daughter's new baby, or your friend from high school, go to the internet with purpose, do what you're supposed to do there, and then get off. But most of us know that our attention is so easily hijacked for hours.
They know what they're doing, these companies.
That's the purpose. That is their purpose, is to capture and hold our attention. But here's what I think is happening. I see more and more people giving me their reaction, telling me, "Oh, that's it. I just canceled the TikTok app. I just had to take it off my phone entirely." Or, I've just tuned out the news entirely. There's so many reactions to kind of get some self-discipline. Most of us know we're sort of powerless to actually do it without just unplugging, period.
Well, because it takes a real... you have to be really conscious of it, and you have to... I think for me, it was kind of a monumentous moment. It was kind of all of a sudden one day I just went, right, no, I've had enough now. And I don't want to keep being... for me, it was all about Facebook. I don't want to keep seeing what other people are doing all the time. I want to focus on me. And I just removed it all. And then I sort of drip fed it back in slowly. So I then rejoined, but with a new profile. So taking, I guess, with that sort of... It wasn't a real conscious thing at the time, but giving myself much less of a... making sure that the people I'm connected with are the people I want to be reading.
And that is right there. The bottom line is that we have to recognize that we have a choice, and we have to exercise that choice. But that's usually not how we live our online lives. We're just going there on autopilot. And, in the United States, I always use this example. I don't know how they do it where you're from, but in the United States, at least in our state of Vermont, it's the law that high school kids have to take a keyboarding course. But there's no course about how to use the internet, how to recognize trust, and how to find primary sources, or any of the things that are important. This is like...
It's ridiculous. Yeah,
it's
falls out of date, and I think that. And there's so many things. I think, why are children not taught about taxes, about things, and how business works and stuff like that. I sort of fell out of love with education by the time I finished secondary school, because I wasn't seeing the practical purpose for real life. But then I went to the University of Life, and got experienced by the bucket load.
Yes.
Good and bad,
yes.
which is what kind of led me to here.
Well, also, that whole... we could talk a long time about good thing, bad thing too. I mean, I'm sure that you sound like the kind of guy that if you look back at all the bad things that happened to you, you can probably attach those bad things to insights that you use every day that are positive.
Oh, yeah. From one bad thing has definitely come more positive than not. And there was a lot of bad. But equally, there's been bucket loads of good. But I don't think the good would have come without the bad. So is the bad really bad? Well, it is at the time.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so that leads us to this gratitude economy concept. Okay, so here's what I see happening. From the 10,000-foot look, we're all sick of the negativity. We're sick of the chaos builders. We want no more of that. And we are scanning the world for people who can help us survive and thrive. That's why we're all skimming emails, because we're just skimming that email for a line that will tell us whether this person can help us survive or thrive.
Yeah, you're right.
And this is an opening of a new day. We're all getting a bit savvy. If we're not already just plain sick and tired of the chaos builders, the people who are not thoughtful, don't look helpful, if we're not just plain sick of that, we are able in any time in our lives to look for the people who can help us survive and thrive. And I think that can be our dry cleaner.
Well, do you know what's funny, though? Because you say that when I get hundreds of emails a day, and the majority, if someone goes to sell something, it's always, are you interested in this product? Very, very rarely do I get an email where someone said, I'd really like to understand your business and see if I can help. That's not the tone of the majority of these emails. It's about, I've got this and I want to sell, and and it's they just get deleted. And very, very rarely you'll get someone who might be polite and seems helpful. And yes, I might not be interested, but I do go back to them. So, and I've always kind of been aware of that. That's always the way I've done business, is to be that
Mm-hmm.
way, which is why I think I became successful. But that's I, I think with sales, it's the world is changing. No longer does the let bother someone and hit them up as many times as possible to get their business. People don't like that anymore. People don't want the salesperson of the 90s. They want the, like you've said, the helpful, very considerate, very trusting
Mm-hmm.
person of the modern day.
Yes. And so in business, if we want to turn this conversation directly towards practical business insights, it's that I believe that this gratitude economy is a rising wave. And it's not a matter of when we, if we decide to join it, it's just going to be a when. Because back to the internet, the Gen Zers, this generation that are digital natives below age 22, 23, 24, they are going to out anyone who is not doing business in a way that builds a better future for us all.
Well, you only need to look at things like Glassdoor and Indeed and all these review sites now. The modern generation individual, that they're social media savvy, aren't they?
Absolutely. And they will run circles around the most savvy of us who is not a digital native. It's it's no different than, I could have lived in England for, my whole adult life, but if I didn't live there as a child, there are some certain fundamentals that I would never get. And this is the way the Gen Zers are going to are shaping the future for us all. And we can diss them and find all kinds of reasons. Mostly it's because we're from a different generation and we're looking at them from the outside. But I truly believe the Gen Zers is a generation that wants to be net contributors. And they obviously they have the largest stake in what kind of future we're creating for them. Whether you're talking about climate change or business or, humanitarian things that are going on in the world. So they not only have the tools to run circles around everybody else, but they also have the drive and the most at stake if we don't start getting this experiment in humanity right. So what I see is that they are starting to care about who they do business with, period. They are not going to do business with someone who has child labor in their supply chain. If they discover that a CEO is not walking the talk of being, being socially responsible, they're just going to blast that around the world 10 times before the corporation has any time to even react to it. So the best way to go forward in the coming chapter of humanity, where we go into this mode where we're going to try and bring out the best in each other, where we're going to reward the most thoughtful people, the most helpful people, is to join that movement authentically. I just recently in my dental practice hired a chief happiness officer.
It's a job title I have seen before as well.
Yeah.
I haven't seen many chief happiness officers, but I have seen it once or twice before.
Yeah, I just decided that we walk our talk at my dental practice about being keeping the humanity in healthcare, and that means happy patients, happy that feel like our workplace is additive to their life. That means happy patients that feel like they're truly cared for, and that their humanity is being supported. And that means all the vendors that deal with us feel like they're good. With their relationship with us. I mean, a dry cleaner could be a trusted advisor. This is the place. This is the place we all want to be now. In this new gratitude economy, you will want to be seen as a trusted advisor. And you can't fake that till you make it.
You can't fake that. People can tell insincerity a long way off, despite what people might think. Dr. Lynda, our time is almost at an end now. Is there any lasting pearls of wisdom you would like to leave with us? There's been a treasure trove of them throughout this episode.
Well, I'd like to kind of wrap everything up in that, we've
Yes.
been thinking long and hard about how to really amplify to be multipliers in this gratitude economy that's been here for quite some time. We could do a whole nother show on the articles we've written about people who have been nurturing this wave of goodness and progress for a decade before anybody thought to celebrate their work. We are trying to begin to be facilitators in the opening of this new era. We are asking people to really support the people that are very obviously supporting goodness and progress. There's a difference between just liking something on Facebook and sharing it. Content creators are watching what we share. What we like has almost no impact on the internet going forward. It's what we share. And so I have the 4 shifts that I teach people that I'd like to leave your guests with. It's a real practical way of using the internet to start seeing a whole new world, because our algorithms are watching what we're giving our attention to. And the world I see, because I'm so careful about what I give my attention to, is full of promise and all these people in this opening of a new economy that we're going to be all so grateful for. Here's the 4 shifts. And you don't have to take notes or anything. That we've created a place on the internet called 4shifts.com. It's the number 4 or the letters of the spell it out, 4shifts.com, where there's a 10-minute read that you can really get a giant grasp and start applying these to your online life, and you will see the same beautiful world full of innovators and connection that I see. So here's the 4 shifts. First, pause. Pause before you click on anything. Your click is a vote, because someone is counting every click you make. And you get more of whatever you click on. The second step of the shifts is to...
I think step number 1 is so interesting, but yeah, please carry on to number 2.
Okay, it's that simple. There's no magic in there. In fact, it astounds me often that I'm the one out there beating the drum on these 4 shifts, because this is bringing the internet
to... Well, it's true. Whatever you click on, you are going to get more of it.
It's
it. Works. That's the art of the cookie.
Yes, I ran this by an internet security guy from MIT that I was at a meeting with, and when I forwarded through the 4 shifts at him, he was sitting there in silence, because they are so simple. But this is what happens when you get to a fundamental understanding that other people can use, is that you get so much clarity. Okay, so first is pause before you click on anything. Your click is a vote, because someone is counting every click you make, and you get more of what you click on. That's it. That's if what you see is negative all around, it's because you gave your attention to negativity yesterday and the day before and the day before. So the second of the 4 shifts is ignore more. If you simply use the thoughtfulness, helpfulness measure that you and I talked about a minute ago, if you said, is this thoughtful? Is this helpful? Is this something we need more of as a world? If you use that as your litmus test before you click on anything, I'm talking, don't click on the blobfish. Don't click on the headline that says 2 death ships docked in Miami. This is all clickbait. The anaconda with the human form in it. It's all clickbait. The political swings and big news and breaking news, that's all clickbait. So ignore more. That's the second shift. If you ignore it, if you use that, is this helpful? Question, I can guarantee you will not click on 80% of what you used to click on. And then the third shift is seek signs of goodness and progress. Because for right now, your online lives will not bring it to you. You have to find places like Ever Widening Circles, or the BBC, or the NASA channel, or whatever is in your whatever makes your heart soar. If it brings goodness and progress to the world, even in a small way, seek that kind of content. And then that's what you're going to start seeing. Because your algorithm is simply looking at what you're looking for, or what you're giving your attention to. And the fourth shift is to, when you see signs of goodness and progress, share it. Content creators are intensely interested in what we share, not what we like. So if you see a posting on Facebook that the neighbor boy raised $400 or for the Humane Society, don't just hit like on Facebook. You say, oh, isn't it neat? A 10-year-old raised all that money to save homeless dogs. Don't just hit like, hit share. Because you and I both know that what we share matters. It can start a wave of its own. And if we're conscious about sharing goodness and progress, that will begin to rise to the top. It's just the way the internet is built.
I think that's such a nice way, Lynda, for us to end the show. It's been one of my favourite ever podcasts, and you can tell that by it probably being one of the longest ever podcasts. But I think we could have carried on, and I think we must have another conversation another time. But if people want to find out more about you, 4 Shifts, Ever Widening Circles, indeed, the book, Happiness is an Option, where can they go to?
Yeah, the next project that I'm doing that I am so grateful has evolved and I know that can make an impact in people's lives. We're hosting the 2nd annual Conspiracy of Goodness Summit. They can go to COG Summit, C-O-G, Conspiracy of Goodness Summit.com. And we are hosting an afternoon of some of these incredible thought leaders that we've come across that have found purpose and meaning and are changing the world for us all. And we're gonna spend time, communicating with folks who are also wanting to know more about goodness and progress in the world. But these folks, the 5 speakers that we have, they're gonna have Q&A sessions, and this event, it's on October 10th, will change the trajectory of people's lives. So that's the place I'm really focusing on right now, because that's all I really care about is impacting this gratitude economy.
And I think what a lovely place to direct people to. It sounds fascinating, and I'll be sure to sign up. Lynda, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Delightful. Have a great day.
Thank you very much. That's the Career Success Podcast. I'm Jason Connolly. Until next time, goodbye.